Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I am here with my reflections on the month of December. So without further ado, we'll get into the materials. The order that I usually do this in is showing the decks that I worked with and used in the month first, and then we move into the books, and then the miscellaneous materials and experiences of the month. And I think in recent months, I've put more of an emphasis on the experiences and things that actually occurred during the month, so less tangible, so there's more to share in terms of stories, and the decks have kind of taken a back burner or a step back. The decks actually this month are a bit lackluster, and they're going to seem like repeats as they tend to. As of late, I've been downsizing my collection, and I really just stick to the same few decks to use for myself and clients, so that area is going to be a bit on the smaller side and not as exciting, so we'll just get through that first. The first one, and I guess this one is a bit of a surprise, and it may seem blasphemous on my channel or to those who know me, but I have a Rider-Waite Smith, a traditional plaid-back Rider-Waite Smith. This is my very first copy I ever got or owned, and the reason that this made a reappearance this month is because I am teaching a tarot class in the beginning of the new year, and I wanted to freshen up on my Rider-Waite Smith sort of knowledge and style. I haven't read with this deck in such a long time, but I'm using it to teach the class. I think it's more friendly for beginners coming in. It's imagery that's very well known, and while I do think that it's possible to teach a beginner class with the Thoth deck, I don't think that the elements and themes there are as conducive for learning. I think they can be a bit intimidating, and it can be a lot to kind of take on, and so this to me seems a lot more approachable and friendly, so I chose this as the deck that we're going to start with in the class. So the reason for it coming back is more so for teaching purposes and also to freshen myself up. I have, as much as I show the Thoth deck all the time and I'm a Thoth reader, I have nothing against the Rider-Waite Smith. I would say it just doesn't appeal to me quite as much, and I think that just has to do with some of my personal preferences in the way I like a meaning or image to convey something. I don't like literal scenes as much, although actually as far as more scenic style decks that are quite literal as far as those decks go, the Rider-Waite Smith is perfect because I like a scene that is simple, kind of has the base elements, and so there really is a lot of room to work with, but the Thoth for me just does it. But for once in quite some time, the Rider-Waite Smith has made a bit of a comeback in my life for its own reasons. So we have that. The next three aren't going to be any sort of surprise, I don't think. I will just show the Thoth deck because, of course, for my own readings and client readings, this is what I'm using, what I'm probably always going to be using, so that's that. I just pulled out the trim version. I tend to either use this or my greenie, and this one was the closest on hand. I've actually been using it a lot in other ways, in sort of magical rituals and practices like that, so that's been exciting. I find that the Thoth is a great deck for magic, and that each one to me is very much like its own sort of sigil or stamp or a magical seal of sorts. I actually have a video on that, so put that in the cards if you're curious, but yes. The Thoth deck for all purposes, including magical, a mainstay. And then the other two that I have, one that's shown up the past, I want to say almost 2 months, maybe the last 2 months, is Anna Cortez's playing card Oracle Divination deck. And this is just a playing card deck that is illustrated. All of the cards, even the pips, are illustrated. And this is one I recently did a review on. I absolutely love it, and I've been enjoying playing card divination the past couple of months. It's something for me that has been pretty eye-opening, and as somebody who likes to read cards, this system particularly jives with what I look for in terms of a system of divination, so it ticks all the boxes, and I think Anna Cortez is amazing, as I've said before, and I'm looking forward to actually interviewing her soon with the release of her new book, so stay tuned for that and let me know if you have any questions that you would want me to ask her. But that's a big favorite for me, mostly in terms of study, but I do pull a card each day from this deck or from a playing card deck alongside a Thoth card to reflect on in my journal. So big favorite for me. And then another playing card deck, and this is the Pagan playing cards from USI, the same creators of the Pagan Otherworlds, among many other decks. And this has been more so just, it's a very plain and standard playing card deck, although the courts are stunning, so are the aces. So I do love that, but the pips are normal pips, so it's great for me to work with these and know and get some practice with more traditional style playing card decks where there is less imagery going on. And while I'm not a big fan of Marseille style for whatever reason, the pips of a playing card deck don't bother me. I kind of like how it looks like a sea of numbers on the table and you're kind of swimming amidst all of this sort of numerological stuff going on. I like that it feels like, I don't know, it just feels like the numbers sort of have a voice and they speak and it's a language, and when you string them together like letters or words, they really can come up with something pretty complex. So for more standard style playing card divination practice, this has been the one I'm going to, and it's really high quality. It's that linen cardstock that USI is known for, so it's a great one in my opinion. So that takes us through all of the decks. Not too exciting there. I really do stick to my tried and true decks, and for me it's more about what I do with the cards and how I use them as opposed to the decks and searching for more decks. I do see myself as a bit of a collector, but also more than anything I see myself as a reader, and so I like certain qualities and images and systems, and those are just the ones that I tend to go for and stick to and that work for me. So next we'll get into the books. I have 4, and I'm actually filming this a bit before the end of the month. I usually film my reflections or recaps on the last day of the month or the first day of the new month, but I still have a few days left in this month. So there are 2 books that are kind of reaching their end that I haven't quite finished, but I do feel I've read enough of them to be able to offer something about them. So the 2 that I did actually finish already earlier this month are The Art and Practice of Geomancy, Divination, Magic, and Earth Wisdom of the Renaissance by John Michael Greer. So this is what it looks like. And I've actually been really into geomancy alongside playing card divination, mostly because when I read Ana Cortez's book and how she factored in geomancy in terms of like a correspondence, it made me curious. And so of course geomancy is its own system of divination, but it can correspond to tarot and playing cards if you choose to. You can kind of take elements and add them in. But I have come to find that geomancy is quite complex on its own and in and of itself. And so this book was actually really wonderful. I was kind of scared that it was going to be a bit droll and one that was just taking you through very sort of rote exercises and giving you definitions. And while there are sort of meanings, correspondences, definitions of the various geomantic figures, this is really exciting. There's a bit of history, so for those who are interested in Renaissance history as it pertains to the occult, this was really great. And I think John Michael Greer's, is that his name? John Michael Greer's writing style it's conversational and it keeps somebody interested. It's not intimidating, but he does pack a lot of information, and I think this is one I'm going to have to read at least 1 or 2 more times to feel like I got a really good retention out of it, if that makes sense. So I've been using this for reference as well, and I'm planning on reading another book on geomancy that's in the mail currently, but really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to kind of doing some geomancy in the coming months and factoring that into my readings and seeing how that goes. So stay tuned, probably more on that to come, but really, really enjoyed this book. I think this is my favorite book of the month. The other one I finished is 54 Devils, The Art and Folklore of Fortune Telling with the Playing Cards by Corey Thomas Hutchison. This one was recommended to me when I started my playing card divination by actually somebody who watches my videos. They mentioned it in a comment and I had it in my Amazon cart, and so it just seemed perfect, so I went for it. It's a nice quick read, as a lot of playing card divination type books tend to be. So this one was a nice easy read. You get a little bit of history, you get the definitions, styles of working with playing cards. I tend to find that a lot of these playing card books do draw on more folkloric elements and folk styles of magic and practice. And so that's very interesting, especially coming from tarot, where there's a lot of ceremonial and I would say more intricate, detail-oriented aspects. And when it comes to folk magic and practice, it tends to be a little bit more raw and visceral and quick and instinctive. So reading this was really fun, and getting to know more about playing cards. Of course, everybody's opinions are very varied when it comes to playing card divination, so adding one more to the mix is equally frustrating and interesting. So really enjoyed this, and I would recommend it for those looking to learn playing card divination. And then the two that I'm still currently in the midst of reading but plan to have done by the end of the month in a few days, we have Fortune Telling Using Playing Cards by Jonathan Dee. And this one is a nice little square book. It goes through a lot of the definitions. It draws upon history as well. I like how a lot of these books do incorporate historical meanings and sort of things of how playing cards sort of came to be. And there's more of this emphasis on, I don't know, there's definitely a folky element to playing card divination as far as what we can find in written history. So finding this really interesting, just like the other one. I don't think there's too much in my head that I can differentiate the two from each other with, but really enjoying this one as well. And then we have Secrets of the Thoth Tarot, Volume 2, Bricks of a Living Temple, The Minor Arcana, Geomancy, and the I Ching by Marcus Katz. So this is the second volume in those 3-volume series of books on the Thoth. I read the first volume last month, and that was the largest volume, and it was on the Major Arcana. I'm now in the middle of reading this one, and this one is on the Minors, Ace through 10, and then I'm going to read the third one next month, which is on the Courts. And the way that it's kind of done, I think, is really interesting. I really respect the attention to detail and research Marcus Katz has done. I don't think these are beginner books or books that somebody should pick up if they want to learn the Thoth. I think that these are great books for those who feel comfortable enough with the Thoth to extend their studies. So I would consider these more intermediate, mostly because they read a bit like a scholarly text that is researched, and they don't help a reader know as much about how to use the cards and what the meanings are. It's more about understanding Crowley, history, various systems and elements that are present. So enjoying this, almost done with it, and looking forward to the third volume come next month. So that takes us through the books, and now I guess we'll get more into, of course, the miscellaneous items as well as the experiences. Oh, what just dropped? Oh, we have a Sheila Nagig down. I guess she's wanting to be spoken about a bit, so we'll get to her in just a second. But getting into those experiences and miscellaneous things, this has been a really busy month for me, and I know it is for many. December with the holidays, if you celebrate, depending on what you celebrate. December is also my birth month and my sister's birth month, along with my 2 best friends' birth month. So there was a lot going on, and then, yes, of course, the holidays. So I'm going to get into some of the items. Now, these are things that I may have acquired for my birthday or for Christmas, but that I really think are I guess, applicable and pertinent to my month and how it's sort of progressed. So we will start with, I guess I'll do jewelry, and I really do enjoy jewelry in a more spiritual way and as a reflection of who I am and the way that I can sort of style it. I've gotten a few comments on some of my pieces, and I guess I'll speak to the pieces that I got from one singular location because I have a few of them. Here, I'll take it off instead of just shoving my face in the camera to show it. This was a present from my sister for my birthday. It is a little lemniscate Ouroboros with a sun and a moon. This piece is from an Etsy shop called Fox Lark. I'll try to link them down below. A lot of the pieces that I get that aren't vintage or one-offs sort of come from this Etsy shop. It's one of my favorites, and I have a bunch of their pieces. So I got this, and it's really beautiful. So that's from my sister. I also got this from a friend, and this is a similar piece. It's an Ouroboros with the cycles of the moon in the middle and a sun, and I really enjoy that one as well. And then some of my chunkier pieces are actually also from this brand or from this Etsy shop, Fox Lark. And this is a chunkier sort of silver necklace that's meant to look like branches with an obsidian, not obsidian, this is black onyx. And so to me, it kind of looks like a new moon, and as if I were peeking through the branches and, well, not seeing a moon, but it being the new moon. So I do like that a lot. And I have two other pieces from Fox Lark that are black obsidian, so this will be nice to pair with those. And for me, jewelry and the sort of the metals and the crystals is a spiritual thing for me. I guess it borders on what I would consider glamour magic, but also something that I incorporate. I see most of my pieces as talismans in one way or another, so it's more for me than just accessorizing or putting something on that looks nice. There usually is a deeper meaning behind it. One that I also got from my aunt is this ring right here. I'm not sure how well it's showing up. I actually pulled out the sheet that came with it. And so I'm learning about what this ring symbolizes, but it is I believe it's called a Paiju wealth ring. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. But it's supposed to be for good fortune and just fending off bad energies, so I really appreciate that. And I think it's really beautiful. And then also from the same aunt, I got this blue topaz necklace. It's sort of in this little cage. And that is my birthstone. It's also my sister's birthstone, so she got one as well, but hers is a bit different in its style, but I think it's really, really pretty. And I've never had a blue topaz necklace or piece of any sort, and it's funny because that's my birthstone, so you would think, but yeah, so really appreciate that one as well. And that's that on the jewelry, but I'll have Fox Lark linked below. I have a few pieces from them and really enjoy, and I know I have occasionally gotten comments asking about certain pieces, so I know that there are a few that I have that have been asked about that are from there, so they will be linked down below. I think that they are wonderful. So next I have this, I guess just a little piece. It's not jewelry, it's a coin actually, and this kind of links to a story or an experience from the month. For Christmas, ever since my sister and I were little at my parents' house, they do a scavenger hunt for us in the morning after we sit and everybody opens their presents. We have a scavenger hunt where my dad will incorporate all these cool elements, things from literature. Sometimes there's crossword puzzles, and we'll have to do things with compasses and mirrors, and it can become really, really fun and intricate. But one part of it did have to do with this sort of more historical aspect, and so my dad gave my sister and I each one of these coins. This one, it's from 1881, and I believe it was one of my, I want to say, is it my great-great-grandmother, or I'm not sure how many greats to add in to get to the proper ancestor, but she owned this, and my dad says that she sewed it into the lining of, I believe it was maybe her skirt or something. I'm not sure why they did that. I'm gonna have to look into this a little bit more. My dad actually holds on to a lot of our sort of family pieces, and we have a big chunk of them, and sometimes I've gone through and looked at the various things throughout history that have kind of been maintained and kept, and so it was kind of cool that my dad gave my sister and I each one of these. It says pluribus unum. I believe that's in God we trust, and it is it's a $1 coin, for a United States $1 coin, but just a very old one from 1881, so they don't really look like this anymore. So I think it's really cool. It's quite heavy and just really interesting in my opinion. So there's that. And then what else do I have to speak of? Oh, I got this really wonderful for Christmas. I got this crystal singing bowl, and I've wanted a singing bowl of some sort for quite some time and looked at them, kind of been on the fence about certain styles, whether I wanted a crystal one or a metal one, and the various chakra correspondences which do matter to me. This one is, it hits a G note, so that corresponds to the throat chakra, and I knew personally that I wanted a bowl that either corresponded to the throat, the solar plexus, or the sacral chakras, because those are the ones I tend to have issues with energetically, but also in the way that they sort of correspond to my physical health. I have a very sensitive sort of I guess, respiratory system, so I tend to get a lot of sore throats and irritated in that way. And just the idea of the throat chakra to me is kind of important as far as a lot of things go in my practice and life and communicating and expressing myself. So this has been really great. I would play it, but it's kind of difficult to play holding. It has a little ring and the sort of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to play in your hand because my hand detracts from the vibration, but really, really enjoying this. And I incorporate sound a lot into my spiritual and magical practice, so this has been a wonderful new element, and I'm really glad that I have it now. Keeping with the theme of sound are a few things that I already had, but have been kind of bringing out a lot more, and I tend to in the cooler months for one reason or another. I have my rattle. This I got on Etsy, and I forget the shop owner or the shop name. I believe I've shown this before last year, and it's just a handmade rattle, and I tend to use it for cleansing. So I guess this is something that could kind of have its own video, how I go about cleansing and sound cleansing, but I'll use a rattle more so to disrupt energy and sort of dislodge stagnant energy and disperse anything that feels sort of unhelpful. So this is usually the first thing that I'll do in terms of sound cleansing, is to use the rattle and go through the corners of my room. So I have a sort of process that I do that with, and it's usually after very physically cleaning my space, I will energetically begin the cleansing process with the rattle. So that's been pretty big for me. I then tend to follow it up with these chimes. These are Etruscan chimes that I got a while back when I was in Italy with my sister, and they're quite loud actually, so I don't want to clink them too loudly, but I'll use these after I sound cleanse. I've been doing a lot more, I would say, magic and just energy work with sound lately, and so for me the chimes are about balancing energy. The sound to me just, it feels like it's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, but just puts the energy right after it having kind of been dispersed and disrupted. So the chimes have been big for me. I'll also use them sometimes in meditation to signify the opening and closing of the process. So they are quite the spiritual tool for me, very multi-purpose, and I enjoy them quite a bit. Next, and I guess the final sound sort of tool that I will mention, is my drum. I got this from the same Etsy shop where I got the rattle. Both of these are handmade, and this was a bigger investment piece for me. It's a small drum, but I tend to use it more in the winter and the drier months. And yeah, so I'll use this actually after I've done the rattle and sort of harmonized what feels like harmonizing the energy with the chimes. I will then play the drum, and to me that sort of invites in and creates warm, positive, beneficent energy. It feels like I'm inviting something in through the beating of the drum, and I can sort of create energy, and I don't know how to describe it either, but yeah, so this will be usually the third step, and I've been bringing it out a lot more. In the summer, there are actually times when it gets a bit too warm and humid where I live, and the drum gets almost to the point where it doesn't sound as nice, because, I mean, you will know, anybody who drums on drums that have sort of like a hide or a leather surface, that if it gets too wet or humid, that can disrupt the way the drum works and make it a little bit too loose. So I like the way it sounds the best in the cooler and drier months, and I tend to use it more in that way. It also feels like a tool that's very warm. When I play this and sort of drum up and strum up the energy, to me it is a feeling of warmth, and so in the summer I'm not craving that and seeking that out quite as much. And yeah, so for one reason or another, the drum has been pretty crucial in my practice this past month as well. And then lately, the way I've been using the sound bowl has been mostly following everything. I'll kind of use it in the morning before my journaling, because it's a throat chakra corresponding note. To me, the idea of expression definitely comes out through my journaling, so I'll do that. I'll also use it before readings for myself and clients. If I'm doing video or pre-recorded video or Skype readings, I'll have or take a few minutes for myself to play the sound bowl, and I do find that it gets me in a really great state of mind and does help with the way I can convey a message. So all of those sound type tools have been pretty pivotal for me this past month. If you want to know more about how I use those sorts of things and my practices there, let me know. I can do a video on that. Now, coming more towards the end, one that I think is just so sweet that I got for Christmas from one of my aunts is this sort of tarot kit set. So my aunt sews, and she made this tarot bag on this sort of night sky cosmic type print, and it's a decently big size. It can fit pretty much any of my decks, which I love. But alongside it is like a matching larger pouch, so I can put a bunch of tarot bags, decks, and also sort of like writing materials that I might bring, because I usually bring a notebook to either write a sort of synopsis of a reading for a client sometimes, or if I'm sort of doing immediate writing as a reading begins, like words and things that sort of pop into my head. So I can kind of include all of my materials in a bag that's this big, along with the matching smaller bag for an individual deck. And then there's a tarot cloth that goes along with it. I love the feeling of it and the fact that there's this whole matching set. So I'm looking forward to using that in the shop, and hopefully as things get better, hopefully toward the warmer months, I can bring this sort of kit to events. It's really great for those types of things. And then she also made a mask too that matches in matching materials. So I'm enjoying that a lot too. So when I go to the shops on Fridays, I can wear my matching mask and then also have all my materials in matching cloth sets. So that was really sweet of her, and to think of me in that way and to make these so they're extra special. Now, wrapping it up, what else do I have? I think that's about it. I was just going to show also this cleansing spray, which I think I've shown the past 2 months, but as somebody who, like I said, is sensitive to candles, especially scented candles, and any sort of smoke cleansing or use of incense, this has been great. It doesn't irritate me at all. It does have some essential oils. I think I linked the creator of this last month, and I'll link them again. I need to refill this bottle. I do have the larger bottle to refill it, but I love the earthy scent of this, so I wear it as also a body mist, and I'll spray it everywhere all the time. I could bathe and live in this scent. I think it's technically a type of Florida water. They're made in small batches by a woman who lives near me close to the beach. I believe her Instagram name is something like, I'm forgetting it now, but it'll be linked below. And I know she sometimes sells these. I don't know if she ships them, but I've really enjoyed this. Cleansing practices are pretty big for me, and in the winter, for some reason, I feel the need to cleanse more. In the warmer months, something about the way that the air works and having my window open and the amount of sunlight makes it feel like nature is cleansing a lot of my space and energy for me. And in the winter, it feels like something I have to do a lot more consciously and keep up with a lot more. I don't know if others feel that way. Let me know, because I would be curious to know how others sort of interact with the seasons, because now we're really in the midst of winter and I'm noticing my patterns that have kind of persisted over the last few winters and how that relates to my spirituality and my tarot practice, my magical practice. And in the winter, because I'm inside more, I wouldn't say I've been practicing magic and doing more sort of ritual type things than usual, but I do make more concerted efforts, and I have spent a lot more time at the altar than I have in previous months, just lighting candles for one purpose or another, or laying out cards that correspond to something I want to manifest or focus or hone in on. And of course, the Siwa Nagig before was speaking to us a bit, and one of the representations that I painted of her fell, so I have been doing a lot more work with her. She tends to be who I turn to during the cooler months, because a lot for me of the Siwa Nagig is quite earthy and watery and dark, and so when there's less sunlight, more nighttime, a sort of barrenness, it does feel like the Siwa Nagig's energy is more present. For me, while the Siwa Nagig in some ways is threefold, I do think that her predominant aspect, at least in my practice, is the hag. So, and for me that is a time of winter, the hag, and the way that works. So yeah, there's been a lot more work there, whereas my main working altar, where I do have a section of that dedicated to Gabriel, not that it becomes less active, but I do connect him a bit more to sun and warmth and vibrancy. And so in the winter, when I do turn to Gabriel, it's because I'm looking to sort of draw in those elements that I feel like he represents, but I also don't feel like it's his time of year. I feel like this time of year belongs to, at least in my practice, the Sheila Na gig, and that Gabriel is not necessarily less present, but less, it's just not, it's almost like he's out of his terrain. So that's been really interesting to take note of in my magical practice and the way that that works. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Wonderful holiday times with family and friends, of course, in smaller quantities, which in some ways I think was nice to sort of cherish those more intimate moments as opposed to larger gatherings. As far as family gatherings go, I don't think I ever had many that were so large anyway, but having just more of that core group where you really have to take the time to spend a lot of time with individuals was really nice. And as opposed to viewing it as something that was limiting, I chose to view it as something that was more expansive and allowed for a lot more depth. And so I enjoyed that. Personally, at my house, we celebrate Christmas, so that's how that went for me. And I hope that you all had wonderful holidays and a holiday season, depending on if you celebrate and what you celebrate and when that was. I hope you are all well. Like and subscribe if this was fun and interesting. And until next time, bye.